I'll be very honest. I think that the appeal of zombies is that they can be represented in so many different ways. I don't really watch The Walking Dead. Not that I'm not a fan of it, I just haven't really watched it. But I love like Night of the Living Dead. I love Dawn of the Dead. I love, Day of the Dead. I mean, all that, whatever those things are called. I'm a big George Romero fan, and I love sociologically what can be done with the zombies, what they can represent, how they can represent, humans in certain ways, how they can represent corporations in certain ways, how they can represent systems in certain ways. And I just think that that is an incredible thing to be able to put on screen or to put in a book. And I think that probably is at least that's the appeal for me. I think some people just like the idea of anarchy or the idea of a post-apocalyptic world, and zombies are very good for that. I've been writing since about second grade, and basically I wrote a bunch of kind of short books and short stories throughout my life. As I got older, I kind of got into screenwriting, and that led me into making movies. And basically, I've sort of always tried to have a script going, a book going, and a movie going that I was making at that time. And the reason why is I'm usually trying to sell the script and sell the book, and making a movie and writing and whatnot keeps me from going crazy in the process, simply because all the things it takes to get movies made and for things to happen with other people sometimes takes a lot longer than I actually have patience for. I have written, I want to say, I think it's 10 books up to now. Some that I put out myself, some that other publishers have put out. I feel very comfortable writing in the young adult fiction genre. I've always liked that genre, and I know that as you get older, you're supposed to kind of move forward and write more mature stuff and whatnot. And everyone I know wants to be Charles Bukowski or wants to be Jack Kerouac, and the way I look at it is, man, I just want to be R.L. Stine. I want to be S.E. Hinton. I want to, that's kind of what I gravitate towards. So, yeah, I guess that's my background. My influences as a writer, clearly S.E. Hinton. I love all of her books, all of them, even the ones that are lesser known. She just has a way of writing that I really keyed into when I was very young. I remember reading That Was Then, This Is Now, and as a young kid, and I just, and I love The Outsiders, but I was like, wow, there's something about this book that is grabbing me in a way that nothing else I had ever read had grabbed me. I love Stephen King. Not even so much the scary stuff. I love Stand By Me, Misery, which I guess would be scary, and I really love R.L. Stine. I love that young adult fiction world that he creates. It starts off and pretty much everything is perfect, and then very quickly things get unperfect, but then they go back to being perfect, but you just know that something's off, and that's how they kind of play out throughout the whole story. And I really, really, really have been influenced by him. Also, just that whole prolific nature of the way that he was able to create. The collaboration for The Dead Don't Die came about when Kevin Lindenmuth contacted me and said, hey, I have an idea for a book. I want to know if you'd be interested in writing it with me. And before I even heard anything, I said, yeah, I'm interested. And then he told me what the idea was, and I was like, yo, yeah, of course. He and I had met back in 1995 when I had made my first micro-budget film, Walking Between the Raindrops. And while it was sort of lacking in production value, Kevin saw a lot in the writing. And subsequently, he ended up remaking the film a few years later. He came out here and did that. And then we've just kept in touch over the years. And I noticed that he'd gotten into writing books. I'd kind of gotten into writing books just because, when you are making micro-budget films, there's only so much you can do with your budget. And there reaches a point where you don't want to be constrained by that any more than you have to be. And while some people say, oh, well, that's a benefit to be, constrained by that sure it is to a degree, but you can't make a movie that takes place in the 1980s for no money. You just can't. I mean, you can, but you really can't. So anyway, Kevin hit me up with this idea. He told me what it was, and he knows a bit about my background. I happen to work with students who have special needs, and the majority of students that I work with have autism. And I'd written a book about that called Screaming Quietly that Kevin had liked. And we just kind of, you know, he hit me with this idea that about these zombies that basically attack humans, but there's something about people with autism that makes them stay away. And I thought, you know, that's really interesting. I'll get to that part later. A lot of times how people with autism are portrayed in movies and books are these brilliant savants, and someone unlocks, you know, their brilliance in some way, or, you know, you end up coming to find out that this person that's just been, you know, maybe not making the most sense the whole time has actually been making the most sense of all, and they're actually brilliant. And, you know, that, don't get me wrong, I believe, you know, people with autism can certainly be like that. I've certainly seen that in the work that I do, but I like the idea of showing a special day class of students with autism in a way that maybe they're not always shown. You know, there's a lot of nonverbal students in the class. There's some verbal students in the class, but they have deficiencies in other areas. And then to throw in the whole zombie component, you have these students that, I mean, the people with autism, in my opinion, in this book, they're really, you know, they're really the heroes. And they're led by this teacher that also understood and understands their unique gifts and unique traits. But he understood that there didn't have to be a zombie apocalypse for him to kind of understand that. And that's what I really think is interesting and different about The Dead Don't Die. I don't know if it was initially intentional for this book to be sequelized or put into a series when Kevin first came up with it. I know at one point, as we were writing the book, kind of coming close to finishing it, I always like to get other things going, especially, you know, with someone like Kevin, because he's very proactive. I know that I was like, hey, you know, we should turn this into a movie. And he actually wrote me back and said, hey, that sort of kind of is the idea, and this actually could have more parts than just this one book. And that got me thinking, okay. And then as he and I were writing the book, going back and forth, I finally read the whole thing all at once, and I emailed him, and I was like, well, I love what you did with the end. I'm not going to give anything away, but I really like this idea of continuing the story and whatnot. And I think possibly it was intentional on Kevin's part. For me, I was kind of the guy brought in. I'd never really written this kind of book before. I'd written similar stuff, but I hadn't written something like this. So, yeah, I want to make more Dead Don't Dies. I'd like there to be a bunch. You know, I think this could be a good TV show. I think this could be a good show for the web. Thankfully, right now we're living in a time. There's so many ways, so many areas, so many possibilities to get content out to people that I'm excited about this project, and I'm very happy to be a part of it.